Okay, so we're diving into something really interesting today. Got some material here shared by you, our listener, about the book Hooked by Nir Eyal, and it tackles this big question. How do companies, the really successful ones, build products people just can't seem to put down?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, especially now. I mean, everything's competing for our attention, right? So
Yeah.
just having a good product, well, it's often not quite enough anymore.
Exactly. You need people to stick around. And what this book does, which I found really useful, is it kind of breaks down the psychology behind how habits form. Specifically with like tech products, it offers this framework, a four-part thing called the hook model.
A hook model, right? It's
That,
basically a loop, yeah. Designed to connect a user's problem to the product over and over until using it just becomes, well, automatic, a habit. It's less about just getting people in the door and more about becoming part of their routine.
and I like that the book, it doesn't just feel like a how-to guide for, manipulation or something. It seems more like an exploration of why we do what we do online with technology. And there's a real emphasis on designing things ethically.
Absolutely. It really pushes designers and companies
Mm.
to think hard about whether they're actually helping users or just, hooking them for the sake of engagement.
Hmm.
Are you providing real value? That's the ethical core.
Right. Using these powerful psychological tools responsibly, helping people, not just grabbing their eyeballs.
Precisely. So let's get into it then.
Yeah, let's jump in. The book starts with this concept called the habit zone. What exactly is that?
Okay, the habit zone.
Hmm.
Think of it as the sweet spot. It's where using a product stops being a conscious choice and becomes something you just do
Yep.
automatically. It's embedded in your daily life.
So the goal isn't just getting users, it's keeping them by making the product a habit. Why is
Hmm.
that so vital today? Seems obvious maybe, but
Sure. Well, it's vital because first off, getting new users is expensive,
Yeah.
really expensive. And like we said, attention is scattered all over the place. If your product isn't a habit, people just drift away to the next new thing. But if it is a habit,
then you don't need to constantly nudge them.
exactly, they just default to you. It bypasses all that marketing noise because the behavior is ingrained, it's triggered, and boom, they use your product. That automatic use, that's pure gold for retention and, well, growth. It's like a built-in loyalty program powered by psychology.
Okay, so it's valuable. How does the book define this zone? What makes something land in it?
It boils down to two things, essentially. Frequency of use and perceived utility.
Hmm.
How often do people use it and how useful do they find it? Both need to be high.
Right. So something super useful, but you only need it, say, once a year, like doing your taxes online.
Perfect example. High utility, definitely useful,
Yeah.
but the frequency,
Yeah.
very low. So outside the habit zone, you make a conscious decision to use that tool when the need arises, which isn't often.
Okay. And what about the other way around? Something you use all the time, maybe mindlessly scrolling, but it doesn't actually do anything for you.
Yeah, high frequency, but low perceived utility. Maybe it kills time, but it doesn't solve a real problem or satisfy a deep need. The book argues that's also outside the zone, or at least it's a weak habit. It's easily replaceable because it doesn't offer substantial value.
Got it. So high frequency and high utility, that's the magic combination. What are some examples the book uses for things in the habit zone?
Well, mention Slack quite a bit.
Mm.
For many work teams, Slack is indispensable, right? High utility for communication. And the frequency, it's off the charts. People check it constantly throughout the workday. It's baked into the ritual of getting work done.
It's just how work happens now for many.
Exactly. And the other classic is Google search. You have a question, any question, big or small, what do you do?
You just Google it. You don't even think about it.
Right. You instinctively open a browser or tap the search bar. It's automatic
Hmm.
because it offers incredibly high utility, finding almost anything. And the frequency is potentially many times a day whenever curiosity strikes. Default behavior.
And the book emphasizes that these successful habit-forming products, they usually solve problems or, interestingly, satisfy emotional needs, and they do it with minimal effort.
That minimal effort part is huge. If it's clunky or difficult, it won't become automatic no matter how useful it is.
Hmm.
And yeah, often they tap into recurring needs, things we feel or need regularly.
Now, this is important. The book makes a very clear distinction early on between habits and addictions. It feels like a critical line to draw when you're talking about getting people hooked.
Oh, absolutely crucial.
Mhm.
The book is really careful here. It argues that positive habits enhance your life. They help you achieve goals, be more efficient, learn something new. Think about using a fitness tracker consistently or that language app every morning. These are habits that support your well-being.
And addictions are the dark side.
Exactly. Addictions are portrayed as destructive patterns, usually involving a compulsion, doing something even when it has negative consequences. They tend to exploit vulnerabilities rather than empower users. The book strongly advocates for designers to aim for those healthy, value-adding habits.
So the point of the hook model isn't actually to create addicts.
Definitely not, according to the book's ethical stance. It's about designing for engagement that aligns with the user's own goals and improves their life. The contrast is stark. A meditation app helping you manage stress, positive habit, versus, say, an online casino app designed to trigger compulsive gambling, addiction. The mechanics might look superficially similar in places, but the intent and the outcome are worlds apart. One builds you up, the other can tear you down.
That ethical thread runs deep through the whole thing, and it ties this framework back to behavioral economics, right?
It does, yeah. The hook model isn't just some random idea. It's built on established principles of how people think and behave. The book talks about heuristics, those mental shortcuts we all use, and cognitive biases, which are like predictable patterns in our thinking that aren't always strictly rational.
Like mental autopilot.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Our brains are lazy in a smart way. They want to conserve energy. Habits are a key way they do that, by automating stuff. The book touches on the neuroscience, too, how this loop gets wired in. It involves the brain's reward pathways, especially dopamine.
Ah, dopamine, the pleasure chemical.
Well, it's more nuanced than just pleasure. It's strongly linked to motivation, anticipation, seeking. It's what makes us curious, what drives us to explore and find things. The hook model taps into this. A trigger creates a sort of itch, an anticipation of a reward. Taking the action scratches the itch, delivers the reward, and that reinforces the connection, making the whole loop more likely next time. Understanding this helps designers build things that feel natural to how our brains work.
Aiming for that automaticity you mentioned.
That's the goal, yeah. Making the behavior happen without conscious thought. The less you have to think about doing something in response to a trigger, the stronger the habit.
Like the Google example again. It's so automatic you don't weigh the pros and cons of different search engines each time.
Exactly. It's the default. That automaticity gives a product incredible power, immense stickiness. It's not just about being easy. It's about being the only thing you think of doing in that moment.
The book also makes a really strong point about emotional triggers being powerful drivers of habits, maybe even more so than external ones.
This is a really deep insight, I think. Yes, external triggers like notifications are obvious. They grab your attention. But the book argues that many of our most ingrained digital habits are actually sparked by internal states, feelings, often negative ones like loneliness, boredom, anxiety, uncertainty, even just feeling a bit,
So we reach for the product to, feel better, distract ourselves.
Pretty much. The really sticky products often position themselves, subtly or overtly, as the quickest, easiest fix for those uncomfortable feelings. Think about it. Feeling a bit lonely or left out? Maybe you instinctively open Instagram. Bored waiting in line. You pull out your phone for a quick game or newsfeed scroll. The feeling is the internal trigger, and the product becomes the learned automatic response to seek relief. Duolingo is a good example too. Turning that downtime into something productive feels good, right? It satisfies that internal trigger of having a spare moment and wanting to use it well.
Wow. So if you're building something and you want it to become a habit, you really need to understand those underlying emotions.
Absolutely. You need to dig deeper than just what users do.
Yeah.
You need to understand why they feel the need to do it, what's the pain point, what's the emotional driver, and then you design the experience so your product feels like the natural, effortless solution when that internal feeling pops up.
Like the Headspace meditation app. It directly targets feelings like stress or anxiety. When you feel that, the app wants to be the immediate thing you turn to.
Exactly. It becomes the conditioned response for managing that internal state. That's way more powerful than just relying on a notification reminder, you know?
Which brings us right back to the ethics. The book warns strongly against designing triggers manipulatively.
Yes. Ethical design, according to the book, uses triggers to genuinely help users solve their problems or improve their lives. It's not about exploiting fear or anxiety or FOMO just to juice engagement numbers. The aim should be user empowerment, providing real value, respecting their well-being.
And it suggests practical things like doing ethical trigger audits.
Yeah, basically reviewing all the ways your product prompts users, notifications, emails, whatever. Are these prompts genuinely useful? Are they respectful of attention? Are users clearly in control? Can they opt out easily? It's about being intentional and responsible with that power to trigger behavior.
Okay, before we dig into the action step, let's pause. The stuff about the habit zone and triggers, it makes you think, doesn't it? Maybe you, listening right now, can reflect a bit.
Definitely. First question. Think about your own daily habits. What apps or services do you use almost without thinking? And try to pinpoint the feeling, the internal trigger that usually comes right before you open it. Are you even aware of that feeling most of the time?
And second, think about something you're involved with, maybe a product you work on, or even just a process you follow regularly. Does it fall into that habit zone? High frequency, high utility? If not, why? Is it the frequency, or is the value not quite hitting the mark consistently?
And lastly, that ethical line. When you look at your own habits or maybe things you design or influence, are they genuinely positive? Are they building good routines, or are they maybe edging towards dependency or just distraction? How could you consciously steer things toward well-being?
Good questions to chew on. Okay, so we've covered triggers, the spark, what happens next in the hook model cycle. The user takes an action.
Right, the action. This is the behavior the user performs in anticipation of a reward prompted by the trigger. And the book pulls in another key concept here, the FOG behavior model. It's a simple but powerful formula. Behavior, motivation plus ability plus trigger, or BMP.
B equals MAT. So you need all three for the behavior to happen.
Exactly. Motivation.
Hmm.
Does the user want to do it? Ability. Can they do it easily? Trigger. Are they prompted at the right time? If any of those are missing, even with a strong trigger, the action just won't happen, or it'll be inconsistent.
The book used an example of managers wanting employees to use a new system.
Yeah, that's good. You can send emails, triggers all day long telling people to use the new software. But if the software is confusing and hard to use, low ability, or if people don't see how it benefits them, low motivation, they just won't use it. Or they'll resist. You need the trigger and the motivation and the ability all lined up.
Which really underlines how important it is to make the action simple.
Oh, massively important. The book hammers this point home. Reducing the effort, the friction required to perform the action is probably the single most effective way to increase the chance it'll happen, especially repeatedly. Little usability tweaks can make a huge difference.
Like making online checkout easier.
That's a classic example from the book. Think about moving from a complex form to, say, a one-click purchase button. You're drastically reducing the effort needed. Saving payment info, remembering addresses, all that stuff removes friction and makes the action way easier. Think about your own life. Where do things feel clunky or take too many steps? Removing even one barrier can change everything.
And the book points out, motivation isn't always high, right? It waxes and wanes.
Exactly. Nobody is 100% motivated all the time. So products aiming for habit formation need to be designed so they're easy to use, even when motivation is kind of low.
So you design for those moments, making the action require less oomph.
Precisely. You lower the ability threshold. The fitness app example again.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't feel up for an hour-long workout today. Low motivation. But the app offers a quick, simple 5-minute stretch routine. The ability needed is low, so even with low motivation, you might still do it. The action remains accessible.
And the book talks about different kinds of motivation, too. What drives us?
It highlights 3 core drivers from behavioral science. We're motivated to seek pleasure, to avoid pain, and to seek social acceptance or belonging. Most of our actions are driven by one or more of these.
And products tap into these drivers.
Absolutely. Games often promise pleasure or escape from boredom, pain avoidance.
Sure.
Budgeting apps might motivate by showing the pain of debt or the pleasure of saving. And social media. Huge driver is seeking social acceptance, likes, shares, comments, and avoiding the pain of feeling left out. Understanding which core motivator aligns with your user's internal trigger helps you design the action and the reward more effectively.
It's not just about the physical steps either, is it? The book mentions psychological barriers.
Right, this is subtle but important. Sometimes the action is technically easy, but people hesitate because of things like fear of messing up, confusion, or just plain distrust.
Like being hesitant to sign up for something new online because you're worried about your data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sign-up form might only have 2 fields, super simple. But if the user doesn't trust the site or understand the privacy policy, that psychological barrier stops them cold. Things like clear guarantees, social proof, trust badges, or simple explanations can remove that fear or uncertainty and make users feel safe enough to take the action. Think about when you hesitate online, often it's that feeling of uncertainty, right?
Definitely. Okay, listener, let's connect this action phase to you again.
First, pick an action, something you want to do more consistently, maybe for yourself or to encourage in others. How could you make it radically simpler? Break it down, remove steps, make the tools needed instantly accessible.
Second, what really motivates you? Are you driven more by achieving something positive, pleasure reward, avoiding something negative, pain loss, or by how others see you social? How can you leverage your primary motivators to make that desired action more appealing?
And third, think about your own digital routines or work processes. Where do you feel friction? Is it the sheer number of clicks? Or is it more psychological confusion, lack of confidence, distrust? What's one piece of friction you could try removing this week?
Simplifying actions, removing barriers.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. Okay, so the trigger fires, the user takes the action, and then comes the reward.
Step 3, the reward. And the crucial insight from the book here is that it's not just any reward that creates habits, it's variable rewards, unpredictable ones. That's what really hooks us.
Variable. Why does unpredictability work so well?
This dives back into the brain science, particularly dopamine. When a reward is predictable, you know exactly what you're going to get. The dopamine spike happens before you get it, in anticipation. But when the reward is uncertain, maybe you'll get something great, maybe something okay, maybe nothing ill to them. The dopamine system goes into overdrive during the action itself. It fuels the seeking behavior, the craving, the desire to find out what you'll get.
Like playing a slot machine or scrolling through a social media feed. You never know what the next pull or the next post will bring.
Exactly. Those are classic examples the book uses. The slot machine's power isn't just the potential win, it's the not knowing. The Instagram feed keeps you scrolling because the next post might be amazing or funny or important. That variability, that uncertainty is incredibly compelling.
So variable rewards are basically outcomes that change. They're not the same every time.
Right, they can vary in type, in amount, in timing. Anything that breaks predictability and introduces an element of surprise or chance. Think random bonuses in a game, personalized recommendations that sometimes nail it, finding an unexpected bargain, getting a surprise message from a friend.
The book helpfully categorizes these into 3 types.
Yes, makes it easier to think about. Rewards of the tribe, rewards of the hunt, and rewards of the self.
Okay, tribe rewards first. What are those?
Tribe rewards are all about social connection and validation. They tap into our deep-seated need to belong, to be accepted, liked, and valued by others. So likes, comments, shares on social media, getting endorsed on LinkedIn, seeing your posts get upvoted on Reddit, these all provide social affirmation. They make us feel connected and socially validated.
Makes sense. Tribe, social. What about hunt?
Rewards of the hunt tap into our primal drive to seek out resources and information. Think about our ancestors hunting for food or searching for vital information. In the modern world, this translates to things like finding a great deal when shopping online, discovering a fascinating piece of information while browsing, getting a rare item in a game, or even just finding that perfect answer on Google. Learning apps can also provide hunt rewards, the feeling of uncovering new knowledge.
And finally, rewards of the self.
These are intrinsic rewards. They come from feeling a sense of mastery, competence, completion, or achievement. Finishing a level in a game, checking off all the items on your to-do list, seeing a progress bar fill up, mastering a new skill on an educational platform, these make us feel capable and accomplished. It's about personal satisfaction and growth.
Now, here's a really critical connection the book makes. The reward has to match the user's internal trigger.
Yes, this is absolutely key for the habit loop to close effectively. The reward you provide needs to actually scratch the itch that prompted the action in the first place. If the user felt lonely, internal trigger, and opened your app, a tribe reward, like a message or interaction, is likely to satisfy that need. Giving them a self-reward, like a badge for logging in, might be nice, but it doesn't address the core feeling of loneliness.
So if the reward doesn't satisfy the craving, the habit doesn't form properly.
Exactly. The user might perform the action, get some kind of reward, but if it doesn't resolve the underlying tension or need that triggered them, the brain doesn't strongly associate that specific product with solving that specific problem. The loop feels incomplete.
And again, the book includes a strong caution about using variable rewards responsibly.
Oh yeah. Because they are so powerful, they can easily be misused. If you give rewards too often or too predictably, they can lose their punch. That's satiation. But the bigger danger, especially combined with exploiting negative internal triggers, is that the intense variability can fuel compulsive behavior, leading towards addiction. That unpredictability is a double-edged sword.
The book mentions mindful gamification as a concept here.
Right. It's about using game mechanics like variable rewards thoughtfully. Balancing the frequency, the size, the type of rewards to keep users motivated and engaged in a healthy way without pushing them into compulsion or making them feel manipulated or overwhelmed requires real ethical consideration.
And focusing on rewards that offer real long-term value, not just empty calories.
For a sustainable, positive habit, the reward should ideally reinforce progress towards the user's actual goals or well-being. Think about educational apps where the reward is genuinely mastering a skill versus apps that just shower you with virtual confetti for trivial actions. One builds lasting value, the other might just be fleeting stimulation.
Okay, time for another reflection pause, focusing on variable rewards. Listener, think about this.
First, what kinds of variable rewards seem to motivate you the most? When you find yourself hooked on an app or activity, are you primarily seeking social feedback, tribe, new information or resources, hunt, or that feeling of accomplishment, self? Why do those particular rewards resonate with you?
Second, look around at the products you use or even your interactions at work or home. Can you spot where variable rewards are already operating? And thinking ethically, could you introduce variability somewhere, maybe in how you give feedback, or structure progress to make a positive activity more engaging or satisfying?
And third, critically examine your relationship with things that use variable rewards heavily, like social media feeds or certain games. How do you manage that powerful pull to ensure it's adding value to your life, not just consuming your time or creating dependence? What are your strategies for staying in control?
That self-awareness about rewards is really important. Now, we arrive at the final step in the hook model, investment.
Investment. This is where the user puts something into the product. It's not just consuming, it's contributing. This could be time, effort, data, social connections, content, basically resources the user values.
And the idea is investing makes you more likely to come back. Why is that?
Several reasons. Firstly, psychology. When we invest our own resources into something, we feel more committed to it. We put a piece of ourselves in there. We're more likely to return to protect or build upon that investment.
Like spending ages setting up your profile on a platform or carefully curating playlists.
Exactly. Or uploading all your photos to a cloud service, building a large following on social media. You've sunk time and effort into it. Abandoning it feels like wasting that effort.
Investment also makes the product better for you over time.
Crucially, yes. As you invest by setting preferences, rating content, providing data, creating things the product learns about you, it can then tailor the experience, making it more relevant, more useful, more personalized specifically for you.
The Netflix example from the book illustrates this perfectly.
Right. The more you watch and rate, the better Netflix gets at recommending shows you'll actually like. Your investment of viewing history and ratings directly improves the service for you, making you more likely to return there next time you want something to watch, because it gets you.
And this ties into biases like the sunk cost fallacy.
Definitely. We humans really dislike feeling like we've wasted our past efforts. If you've put hours into learning software or building up a reputation on a platform, that sunk cost makes you psychologically reluctant to switch, even if a competitor looks appealing. You want to justify the past investment by continuing. The book also mentions the IKEA effect. We value things more highly if we've put effort into building them ourselves. Creating your profile, your playlists, your content, it taps into that.
So investment creates stored value, as the book calls it.
Exactly. All the stuff you accumulate through investment, your network, your reputation points, your save settings, your content library, your game progress becomes stored value within the product.
And that stored value acts like a barrier to leaving, increases switching costs.
Precisely. It makes it harder and less attractive to start over somewhere else. Think about your LinkedIn profile. All those connections, endorsements, your work history, that's significant stored value. Recreating all of that on a brand new platform, that's a huge pain, a high switching cost. So you stick with LinkedIn.
So a key part of habit design is making it easy for users to make these investments. They don't have to be huge things.
No, in fact, the book stresses making investments small and easy, especially early on. Little bits of contribution, frequently. That encourages ongoing participation and loads the next trigger more effectively. Simple investments reinforce the loop.
Like the Instagram double tap again, that's an investment.
It functions as both an action and an investment. Yeah, it's a simple action to perform. But by tapping like, you're investing a tiny bit of social endorsement. You're providing data that tunes your feed. You're potentially strengthening a social connection. A small, low-effort investment that keeps you engaged and subtly builds value in the platform for you over time. Thinking about how to create those small, easy opportunities for investment is key.
Okay, final reflection round for you, the listener. this time on investment.
First, think about the digital products or communities you're most loyal to. What specific investments have you made in them? Time customizing things, effort creating content, sharing data, building connections. How does that investment make you feel about sticking with them?
Second, if you're working on something, a project, a team process, anything, are there ways you could encourage small, meaningful investments from others, maybe asking for feedback, letting people personalize something, recognizing contributions? How could that build commitment?
And third, take an honest look. Are there areas in your life, apps, hobbies, maybe even older commitments where you feel kind of stuck, mainly because of the time or effort you've already put in? Recognizing that sunk cost bias, does it change how you feel about continuing to invest there or maybe redirecting that energy?
It's a really potent cycle. Trigger, action, variable reward, investment. Understanding it definitely sheds light on why we use certain products so much. But the book doesn't stop there. It pivots hard in the chapter called What Are You Going to Do with This? Directly addressing the ethics.
Yeah, and honestly, this might be the most crucial part. After explaining how to build potentially addictive products, the book immediately says, okay, you know this now, you have a responsibility. The message is crystal clear. Use this knowledge for good. Build things that genuinely help people. Don't just exploit their psychology.
So success isn't just about engagement metrics, it's about the actual impact on users' lives.
Absolutely. The book argues there's a moral weight that comes with designing habit-forming products. You have to ask, is this making users' lives better? Is it helping them achieve their goals? Or is it just sucking up their time and attention, maybe even causing harm for the sake of profit?
And it suggests building ethical checks right into the development process, like those ethics reviews.
Exactly. Making it a routine question. What's the potential downside here? How could this feature be misused? Are we respecting user autonomy? Are we promoting well-being? It shifts ethics from an afterthought to a core design principle.
And the argument is that aligning the business goals with actually benefiting the user is the only sustainable path anyway.
Right. The book makes the case that companies playing the short game using manipulative tactics or dark patterns for quick growth might win initially, but they erode trust and ultimately harm both their users and their own reputation. It's not sustainable.
It contrasts, say, a subscription tool that genuinely improves your productivity long term, where the company wins when you win, versus maybe an ad-based platform where the main incentive is just to keep your eyes glued to the screen as long as possible, regardless of whether that's good for you.
It really highlights the importance of where the value exchange lies. Is the product's success tied to user well-being or just to maximizing attention capture?
And transparency and user control come up again as vital ethical components.
Huge emphasis on this. Respecting users means being clear about how things work, what data is used for, what habits are being encouraged, and crucially, giving users real, meaningful control over their experience. Notifications, privacy, data sharing.
Things like clear settings, easy opt-outs.
Empowers the user, builds trust. When you feel like you don't have control over an app or service, that's often a sign the design hasn't prioritized your agency or well-being. Think about how often you wish you had more control over notifications or data settings. That feeling points to this issue.
So ultimately, the book presents this knowledge of habit formation as a powerful tool. It can build good things or not so good things.
It's like fire, right?
Right.
Incredibly useful, can warm your house and cook your food. But it can also burn everything down if used carelessly or maliciously. These psychological principles can help people build amazing habits, exercise, learning, saving money, connecting meaningfully. Or they can fuel unhealthy obsessions and compulsions.
And it points to the real-world consequences, like the debates around social media and addiction.
Yeah, showing that designing ethically isn't just nice to have anymore. For many companies, especially those dealing with attention and social interaction, it's becoming essential for building trust, maintaining reputation, and frankly, avoiding potentially harmful societal impacts.
Let's take a final moment here for you, the listener, to reflect on these ethics.
Okay, first, whether you're building something, leading a team, or just navigating your own digital life, what ethical principles do you think should guide the use of these habit-forming techniques? What are your non-negotiables?
Second, how can you personally find the right balance? Balancing the desire for engagement in things you create or even your own habits with a deep respect for your own and others, autonomy and overall well-being. Where do you draw the line?
And third, thinking about the services you rely on daily, what could you do to get more transparency, more control? What would informed consent actually look like for your digital habits?
That ethical framework is so critical. The book then uses case studies to show the hook model playing out in the real world.
Right, seeing it in action makes it concrete. The Bible app, YouVersion, is a really interesting first case study because it's not about commerce, it's about using the hook model to foster a deeply meaningful habit for millions of people. Okay, let's break down YouVersion using the model. Triggers. It taps directly into internal triggers related to spirituality, faith, needing guidance, seeking peace, or feeling a need for reflection. These are deep, personal feelings. Users turn to it when they feel these needs arise during their day, making it part of their spiritual practice. It aims to be the immediate answer to those internal prompts.
And the action, how do they make it easy?
Super easy. Simple navigation, reading plans broken into small daily chunks, easy ways to highlight or save verses. They remove the friction often associated with engaging with a large text like the Bible. Small, manageable steps make consistent engagement feel achievable, not overwhelming.
Variable rewards, what keeps it engaging?
Variety is key here. Different translations offer novelty. Hunt. Discovering a particularly relevant passage or insight feels like a hunt reward too. Devotionals provide fresh content. Social features, like sharing verses or plans with friends, offer tribe rewards. And making progress through a reading plan provides that sense of accomplishment, a self-reward. This blend keeps it from feeling stale.
Investment. How do users put something in?
They invest by creating a profile, choosing plans, highlighting passages they find meaningful, writing notes, saving favorite verses, joining community discussions. All this personalizes the app for them, builds up stored value, their notes, their progress, and strengthens their commitment both to the app and the practice.
And the alignment piece seems key here.
Absolutely. The app's core purpose, helping users engage more deeply with Scripture, aligns perfectly with the user's own stated spiritual goals. That creates authenticity and trust. It feels like a partnership, not a manipulation.
It's a powerful example of using the model for positive ends. Now let's look at the other case study, Instagram, often discussed in terms of attention, right?
Yes, Instagram is presented as almost a textbook example of the hook model executed flawlessly. But as the book points out, its success also throws those ethical questions into sharp relief, especially around attention, comparison, and well-being.
Okay, walk us through Instagram and the hook model. Triggers.
Masterful use of both. Internally, it hits core social triggers. Desire for connection, validation, belonging, and that powerful FOMO fear of missing out. Feeling bored, lonely, curious about what friends are doing. Instinctively, opening Instagram is common. Externally, the notifications, likes, comments, new followers, DMs are perfectly timed pops of social validation, directly triggering re-engagement by hitting those internal needs.
And the action. Simplicity seems core to Instagram.
Totally. Scrolling, liking with a double tap, posting a photo or a story, it's all designed to be incredibly intuitive, fast, and low effort. This means you can dip in and out constantly, weaving it into tiny gaps in your day. That minimal friction is key to its high frequency of use.
Variable rewards are obviously huge on Instagram.
Absolutely central. The feed itself is a slot machine of content. Hunt reward. You never know what photo, video, or reel you'll see next. And the social feedback is intensely variable. Tribe reward. How many likes will this post get? Will anyone comment? That unpredictability keeps the dopamine flowing and users scrolling or checking back constantly.
And investment. What do users put in?
Users invest significantly. They invest time and creativity making posts and stories. They invest effort building their follower network and curating who they follow. They invest personal data through their interactions. All this builds up a huge amount of stored value. Their visual diary, their social graph, their online persona. Switching platforms means losing all that investment.
So it nails every step of the hook. But, as the book highlights, this comes with ethical challenges.
Big time. The same mechanisms that make it engaging can have downsides. The variable social rewards can fuel anxiety, comparison, and pressure. The easy action and endless feed can lead to mindless scrolling and time lost. The book stresses that designers using these powerful techniques, especially tapping into core needs like validation, have a responsibility to be mindful of potential harms and build in safeguards.
So ethical design for platforms like Instagram involves that constant balancing act, engagement versus well-being.
It has to. It means thinking about transparency, giving users more control over their feed and notifications, maybe promoting more mindful use, and continually evaluating the real-world impact of design choices. It's complex and ongoing.
Okay, thinking about Instagram through this hook model lens. Listener, maybe reflect on this.
First, How do those social triggers, wanting connection, fearing missing out, play out in your personal use of Instagram or similar apps? Can you catch yourself opening the app because of a specific feeling? What else could you do in response to that feeling?
Second, Instagram's simplicity is striking. Where in your own life, maybe a task you procrastinate on or a project you want to advance, could you apply that principle of radical simplification to make the first step incredibly easy, almost effortless?
And third, considering both the power and the potential pitfalls shown by Instagram, what principles would you prioritize if you were designing such a platform? How would you try to harness engagement ethically, ensuring user well-being was paramount alongside usability?
Okay, we've really unpacked this book, Hooked, and the hook model. Trigger, action, variable reward, investment. It's a clear framework for understanding how products weave themselves into our daily behaviors.
It really is. It demystifies a lot about why certain apps or services become second nature, moving from something we choose to do to something we just do.
Yeah.
Automatically.
But, and we keep coming back to this because the book does too, the biggest takeaway isn't just the how-to, it's the should-you, the ethical responsibility that comes with knowing how to influence behavior this powerfully.
Absolutely. It's a tool, a powerful one. And like any tool, it can be used constructively to help people build healthier habits, learn new things, connect in meaningful ways, or it can be used exploitatively to trap people in cycles that don't serve their best interests. That choice, that responsibility, is central.
So as we wrap up, maybe the challenge for everyone listening isn't just about recognizing how products hook us, but about thinking how we can apply these principles ethically in our own lives, maybe to build habits we actually want, or to help others do the same in a positive way, or even just to be more conscious consumers of technology.
Yeah, turning that understanding inward. How can we use this knowledge to intentionally shape our own routines for the better?
So here's a final thought to leave you with, based on everything we've discussed from the book. Reflecting on how habits are designed, what's one specific habit, could be tiny, could be significant, that you want to intentionally build, or maybe even break in your own life. Using or counteracting these principles of trigger, action, reward, and investment in a mindful, ethical way.
Applying this framework consciously to our own lives. That seems like where the real power lies for personal growth and well-being.
This service is brought to you by Michael Afanga,